Hello, my name is Andy and I am the village idiot, and I'm on with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire and to the second of the Burton twins. Last week we covered Cherry Burton, which is bigger in terms of population than this place, but this one has a lot more to talk about. It's much more characterful and you'll find quite a lot of college students here. This is Bishop Burton. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Bishop Burton is a village and civil parish in the East Riding of Yorkshire, lying on the A1079 road approximately 3 miles to the west of the market town of Beverley. According to the 2011 UK census, Bishop Burton Parish had a population of 696, an increase on the 2001 UK census figure of 628. The look and feel of the village is very distinctive. It's full of properties that have a black and white colour scheme, rustic porches and clay pantiles. These are the result of improvements to estate housing carried out by two members of the Hall Watt family in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Any subsequent development has often followed this architectural style to retain the unified feel of the village. In rare cases where it hasn't, the properties stick out like a sore thumb. There's been human activity in Bishop Burton for at least 10,000 years, with traces left from the Mesolithic, Neolithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age and Romano-British eras. Much like Cherry Burton, its name may derive from Burton, meaning fortified farmstead. It's mentioned in the Domesday Book as belonging to the Archbishop of York. The word bishop in front of Burton is almost certainly a reference to the historical connection with the Archbishops of York. To understand Bishop Burton fully, you have to understand the associated families, the G's and the Watts. The G's came from Rothley in Leicestershire. Henry G was the common ancestor of a senior branch of the family who remained in Rothley and was the father of William G, who first moved to Hull as a master mariner. William G became a merchant of the staple and acquired great wealth. He was Sheriff of Hull in 1560 and Mayor in 1562, 1573 and 1582. Now, we found one of these maps in Cherry Burton, if you remember, and unlike Cherry Burton, Bishop Burton hasn't grown to not nearly the size that Cherry Burton has. You remember Cherry Burton was just basically one street running through it. Well, here it pretty much looks the same now. All of this is pretty much unchanged. That's the oldest part of Bishop Burton. There are a few new builds out here, but generally speaking, the village as you see it on this map here is the village that I am walking around. And there's plenty of information on this board. I'll take a few pictures of this and see what information I can pull off it. G's eldest son, also William G, was Secretary of the Council of the North and Keeper of the Signet from 1604. It was he who purchased the Bishop Burton estate in 1603 and built a hall. In fact, speaking of halls, there have been two by all accounts. They were both named High Hall and the second one was pulled down in 1952. The estate descended within the G family until being bought by Richard Watt in 1783. Richard Watt had started life as a stable boy and coach driver at the village inn before joining a merchant ship bound for the West Indies. There he bought a plantation and exploited slave labour to produce rum and sugar. When he died, his estates were inherited by his nephew and then his grandnephew, both also called Richard Watt. The latter was a horse breeder who had 4 winners of the St. Leger. He brought fame to the village through his horse racing and harlequin racing colours. When he died in 1855, the estates passed to 2 of his sons before lying unoccupied until 1886. At that point, they were passed to Ernest Richard Bradley Hall Watt. Eventually, it would come to Alvery Digby Hall Watt, who sold the estate in 1930, and the estate is now used as a college. The estate village, however, is what you see before your very eyes right now. Demographics time. The population density of the place is pretty low. The parish's size accounts for some of that, as it comes in at a very large 17.23 square kilometres. That gives us a population density of 27.4. However, that only tells us half the story. The figures are worked out based on permanent residents of the place at the last census. As we'll see later, Bishop Burton has on average some 250 to 300 more residents temporarily during part of the year. The age groups break down as follows: 18.2% are children under 18, 23.3% are aged 65 or over, and the remaining 58.5% are of working age. The average house in the village goes up for sale these days at a lofty price of £618,000. And here's the parish notice board. Mark this one off that East Riding list, people. It's been visited. I have to tell you, I'm in love with this village. Everywhere you look, you see something interesting. And how many white houses are there here? It's amazing when the sun shines on them. It really is. Bus services number 3 here. You can catch the X47 and the X46 here, as they both call through the village as they run between Hull and York. There's also a school service running between Bubwith and White College. The number 935 is the one you need for that. There's a small shop which seems popular with both the village locals and all those college students I mentioned earlier. Bishop Burton's pub is called the Altisidora. Originally called Evander, it's named after one of Watt's thoroughbred racehorses and broodmares, best known for winning the St. Leger in 1813. The old red telephone box still stands and it still has a working telephone. I have to admit, I didn't expect that here. The village has a small playground, and this is not too far away from the main communal building in Bishop Burton. That would be the village hall. This is self-funded and self-maintained, and it's registered as a non-profit charitable organisation. Now, education-wise, you cannot miss the enormous Bishop Burton College, a further education and higher education college specialising in agriculture and equine studies. There are no public rights-of-way across the estate, as you can see here from this sign. The college was established in 1954 as the Bishop Burton Farm Institute and was one of the first in the country to be awarded beacon status in May 1999 for the exceptional quality of its agricultural courses as well as outstanding student support. We'll talk a bit more about the college later. So we've seen the main entrance to Bishop Burton College off the main road, but you can get into it that way down North End. It's gated though, so I imagine it's the kind of entrance that only deliveries or authorised personnel would use. The Parish Church of All Saints is a Grade 2 listed building, and its earliest parts date from the late 12th century. An alabaster monument to Rachel and Elizabeth G was found in an old vault under the floor of the chancel in 1865 and restored to its position in the church. Rachel was the wife of William G. The memorial now consists of the shrouded figure of Rachel, full length with her face, one arm and hand exposed, and the small figure of a child which kneels at her head. These two items are thought to have been part of a larger monument, which has probably been destroyed. In a field to the east of the village is one of the medieval stone boundary markers for the sanctuary of St John of Beverley, and that's now a scheduled ancient monument. The only other surviving religious building is the Wesleyan Methodist Chapel, dating from 1840, which is no longer used as such, and it's now a house. Let's get started with the landmarks, and one thing you will not fail to notice in Bishop Burton would be the greens. There are loads of them in various locations. They're magnificently kept. In fact, whilst I was here, the grass cutters were out. You're not allowed to park or drive on the greens at all, and I fully agree with that. Now, do you remember the mere in Cherry Burton? Well, Bishop Burton has one as well. One thing I didn't discuss in that episode is how a mere gets its name. The word corresponds to the Old Saxon merry, and it's closely related to the current French word mer, which of course means sea. It's the same principle as we'll see in places like Cumbria. Lake Windermere even has mere in its name, perhaps the best example of a mere in the entire country. No one driving through Bishop Burton can fail to notice the iconic war memorial standing prominently across the mere, undoubtedly one of the most eye-catching monuments of any village in the East Riding. However, that's not the only memorial you can find in the village. Here are two more. The first commemorates the 75th anniversary of VE Day, whilst the second honours the dead from World War I. These two plaques are more or less side by side near the parish notice board. The Lytgate has more memorials to the Bishop Burton families. Julia Philadelphia Eyre was married to Ernest Richard Bradley Hall Watt, remarrying Javas Malcolm Eyre in 1913. This is the Millennium Stone. It stands at the location of the old sheep wash. It was 28 feet long and 8 feet wide. All the parish's sheep were washed here before being clipped. So this green is called School Green for a reason, because right behind me, that is the old school. Let's talk a little bit about that. There was a school in the village from 1743 to 1986. It was rebuilt in 1860 and it had accommodation for some 80 pupils at its peak. The architecture of the place gives it away that this was once a school. Today it's a private home and it overlooks the aptly named School Green. Okay, that's just about it for the main walk around Bishop Burton. There are a few other things to cover as well, but they will come in the picture bit in just a moment. But seeing as the sun's shining and I have the pond behind me to finish this walk off, I thought it would just be nice to have a quick minute or so just to admire the view. Isn't it amazing? Okay, so I've taken a perch on one of these wooden benches on one of the village greens here in Bishop Burton. This one's in memory of Betsy and Corrie Thomas of Stable Cottage, 1983 to 1999. Now, we're not quite finished because Bishop Burton College, of course, we can't access. There are no public rights of way as we saw on the sign earlier, but that doesn't mean I can't show you some of the college. There's a third entrance to the college. We've seen 2 of them, and the third one is one that I can drive into. Now, I won't be able to drive all the way into the college because obviously it's private at a certain point, but there's a turning circle sort of along this entrance which I can drive up to and then drive around and out again, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to finish this video off, whilst giving you a little bit of information about the college in the process. Let's get to it. So here we go then, up the one and only road that I believed I could legally access. Here's some more historical information about the college in chronological order. It was the first land-based college in the United Kingdom to achieve both parts of the Learning and Skill Council's training quality standard. In October 2002, the University of Hull agreed to validate the land-based undergraduate courses at the college. In July 2005, the college unveiled plans for a £17 million redevelopment, which would result in new facilities for animals, learning, sport and student accommodation. In March 2008, the college was listed as being an equestrian training venue for the 2008 Olympic Games. In October of the same year, a new £3 million equestrian centre was opened by the Princess Royal. The centre formed part of the college's £25 million campus and was designed to hold competitions and events as well as lectures. In August 2012, the college took over from the University of Lincoln the delivery of further education courses being run at Ricehome College. A February 2017 Ofsted inspection report rated the college's overall effectiveness as good. In June of the same year, the college was ranked bronze by the Teaching Excellence Framework according to its standard of undergraduate teaching. The main site has a 360-hectare mixed farm, which includes a high welfare pig unit and sheep facilities. It has residential accommodation for 300 students, 2 hostels, a gym, a sports hall, and numerous catering establishments. And there you have it. That's been the parish of Bishop Burton in the East Riding of Yorkshire. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm off to my next one. I'm out.